This meeting is going to be recorded, so please know that you will receive a recording after we are finished today. And also, if you would like a copy of the PowerPoint slides, please feel free to ask for those. Don't hesitate to do so. You can email us at admin@halliecrawford.com if you would like to have a copy of the slides so that you don't feel like you have to be frantically taking notes today. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. So why is talking about how to deal with difficult coworkers or employees important? It's important because we have all experienced this in some way, shape, or form, me included. But if you take a look at these workplace statistics on this website here, or on the page, research shows that between 60 to 80% of the difficulties that people experience within organizations, they come from strained relationships between employees, not from a lack of competency or an ability for someone to perform their job effectively. And this is a very incredibly high number. And secondly, the typical manager spends between 25 to 40% of his or her time dealing with workplace conflicts. And this ends up being about 1 to 2 days of every work week, which is an enormous issue, an enormous amount of time for someone to have to spend on this kind of thing. We are not going to have time to do polls today. I want to make sure that we have time to get through all of the material that we have. But I want you all to think about, please, if in your situation, if it's just difficult coworkers, if it's difficult employees, or a tough supervisor, whatever the situation is, you need to obviously be aware and clear of, okay, these are the problems here in order to be able to solve them effectively. So we understand the importance of this issue. Myself and my team of resume writers and coaches, we have had clients who want to be better managers or want to have better relationships with their coworkers, all the way to clients who unfortunately have been in toxic work situations because of communication or even harassment issues. So please just know kind of right out of the box here that you're not alone. This is a very common phenomenon to have to deal with workplace issues like this. And the culture, keep in mind that the culture of an organization is critically important to your satisfaction at work, as I'm sure you all can imagine and understand. And we coach clients using these coaching skills that I'm going to share with you today all the time because it helps them dramatically improve the environment that they are in, which is a critical piece to having fulfillment and satisfaction in your work. So if you take a look at this next slide here, this is the ideal career model that we use with all of our clients, not just to help them figure out what their ideal career is and what the right career direction is, but also to help them understand the components that may or may not be working for them right now in their current job, help them identify what changes they need to make, and also understand if it's time to make a shift into a different organization or in a different industry, okay? Work environment is a make or break for being in the right career fit, as I said just a second ago. And if you take a look at the model here on the slide, work environment and having this piece, demonstrates why it's so important. It's a critical piece to every other piece in terms of the career model. Work environment influences all of the other pieces on our model, as well as vice versa. So that is part of why it's a make or break for your ideal career. If anyone would like a copy, by the way, like we said, of the PowerPoint slides or of this ideal career model, don't hesitate to email us at admin@halliecrawford.com. Happy to share that with you if you're interested and if you need to print that out. So let's take a look at our quick agenda here today. We're going to talk about how to define coaching and how we define coaching to set kind of the stage and the right perspective for how to use the tools that we're going to talk about today effectively. We're going to discuss 3 critical communication skills that will help you more effectively deal with difficult coworkers or employees. I'm going to give you a few extra resources in order to help you along the way here. And then we do want you to take action as a result of this webinar, even if it's just a baby step that you take in the next week. We're going to talk about that closer to the end. Unfortunately, we are not going to have time, everyone, for questions today. When we have just these short webinars like this for free for people, I always want to make sure that we get as much content, presented during the course of it. So if you do have questions afterwards, or you would like a copy of the handout, please don't hesitate to email us at admin@halliecrawford.com. Happy to share that with you. Let's take a look at our first agenda item here and coaching and how we define it in our organization. Coaching is basically helping someone learn something in order to improve their performance in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, here we're talking about career. It's not about issuing instructions and telling someone what to do, because as you can imagine, with this difficult person that you're dealing with at work, just blasting in like a bull in a china shop and telling them what to do, we know that that's not going to work. So ideally, coming from a coaching perspective and dealing with this difficult person, it hopefully is more about helping them see things from a different perspective or in a new perspective, showing something new that they need to understand, giving feedback, explaining things to them, and encouraging them to do something differently. So that's how we define coaching, and I want you to just kind of ground yourself in that, because a lot of us, we tend to be more advisors, and we want to go in and, give advice and help someone, which is understandable. But as, we're taking a coaching perspective on these tools, which will help you be more effective, will enable you to put a different hat on, if you will, and come from a completely different place in order to have these difficult conversations with people in your workplace. I'm going to go ahead and put everything up here on the slide here for just a second here. So coaching skills and leveraging the skills that we're going to show you today will help you improve communication in the workplace, because they will help you develop these 5 things on the slide here. Develop greater trust between you and this difficult coworker. Hopefully develop greater empathy on both sides for each of you about where the other person is coming from, because without that, nothing is going to get better, as you can imagine. Develop and maintain the right tone for the conversations that you're having and the tone in the relationship. Create more a sense of honesty and the ability to provide and accept, hopefully, positive, constructive feedback. And honestly, too, what we're hoping as well is that the coaching skills can help you develop a greater sense of connection between the two of you. So keep in mind as well, everyone, that when you have conflict in the workplace, although we want to avoid it and manage around it and work through it, obviously, to a certain extent, when we do have conflict and stepping on someone else's toes and kind of vice versa, it does allow us or gives us an opportunity to grow as a person, as a professional, and to grow together within that relationship as well. So it can develop a deeper connection by having these more upfront, honest conversations. So if you can write these down, these are the 3 critical skills that we're going to talk about in terms of their coaching skills. We're going to talk about these 3 first, and we'll touch very briefly on intuition and self-management close to the end as well. Designing the relationship and how you can do that in order to improve the communication, active and effective listening, leveraging and using curiosity in order to elicit information from the person versus, again, just going in and telling them what to do. But also, we want you to start thinking about leveraging your intuition and self-management as well. These tools will help you deal with difficult coworkers and employees by helping diffuse challenging situations. This doesn't mean, everyone, by the way, that it's a magic wand and this is going to be a quick fix necessarily, because you may have to have, and most likely will have to have, several conversations, and the improvement will happen ideally over time. It's not just a quick fix. Keep that in mind. However, if you stay the course with the tools that we're talking about today, designing the relationship, active listening, and curiosity, things will improve and should improve enormously. So let's go to agenda item number 2 and talk about our 3 critical coaching skills to help improve these relationships and improve these situations. The first one we want to discuss is designing the relationship. And here on the next slide, everyone, are some of the agreements and things that we want you to consider doing with this person that you're having difficulty with. Now, here's the deal. Ideally, if you can set this stage and have the agreement in advance before you start working with them, obviously that's ideal. But for the majority of you, if not all of you that are here today, it's probably already gotten to a difficult place, which is why you're here. So it is possible to redesign the relationship and kind of take a step back from working on your projects and your tasks together and say, hey, I think we need to talk about how we can work together more effectively. You can have these agreements kind of retroactively, if you will, okay? So some of the things that we want you to do in order to set up this kind of meeting to talk with someone about working together more effectively and improving your relationship, here are some of the things on our list of things to discuss with them. So first of all, one of the things we want you to do in setting up this meeting is when you all discuss and talk about this, ask their opinion first. Don't just dive in with what you think. Do come to the meeting prepared with, what your opinion would be and advice and suggestions on how you think you can work together more collaboratively. Sorry, I was trying to say two words at once. More collaboratively and effectively. But get their opinion first. Invite them to share at the beginning as well, because that can help set the stage for a two-way conversation and hopefully something that's more productive. The second thing we want you to continue or consider talking about during the course of this meeting and make changes to it over time as needed is to establish guidelines for communication and how you communicate effectively. Do you email for the most part? Is one person more comfortable with email and the other person's more comfortable talking over the phone or in person? Talk about how you can both communicate more effectively based on your style for each of you. Talk about how you can handle your tasks more efficiently or effectively. And how often and how so and where should you conduct the meetings that you have. Set boundaries and guidelines for how often, you all meet and discuss things. Set boundaries for how you communicate more effectively in providing feedback. Make an agreement for how you can handle conflict together more effectively and how you should handle disagreements or difficult feedback with each other. If you discuss these things up front or even, as we said, retroactively, but talk about them for a few minutes first in order to improve the situation, instead of just working on your tasks all the time, the relationship can improve over time. So don't just dive into, the tasks of the project. Talk about how you're going to manage them effectively. This is these 6 things on the next slide here in terms of designing the relationship. These are the 6 things that we want you to make sure that you cover when you talk with this person and come up with even a written agreement. This is our kind of working document of our work relationship agreement. You can call it something like that. You want to discuss your objectives and your tasks. What are the things that you all have to work on and focus on to get this particular project completed, or whatever roles you play on your team? You want to discuss, number 2, the roles you each should play in your work relationship based on your strengths, and make sure that you're each leveraging the strengths that you have versus working against those. So discuss your roles and make sure that they're in the right spot. Discuss and talk about any challenges that you have encountered already so far and that you may encounter in the future, and how can we handle those together more effectively. Discuss milestones for how you know that you will be making progress on your, not just your work tasks, but on improving your relationship as well. Come up with ground rules for meetings, communication. But are there any other ground rules that you need to come up with? Like, I really take feedback better, or I can accept feedback better if you send it to me via email, for example, and I can sit with it a little bit versus coming in and talking about it right away. That could be one of the ground rules that your coworker asks you for, or vice versa, okay? And so I want you all to think about, if you have developed this type of checklist for a team or professional relationship before, even if it's, pieces of this, if you've discussed it in a team situation before, all of these items on this checklist are relevant for team meetings, as well as, long-term and short-term projects, but also just one-on-one relationships with your coworkers as well. So they go for both sets of situations, if you will. Let's take a look at this next slide, and we're still talking about designing the relationship, right? And this is our first skill. This model is the 4 needs of followers, and it's from the Gallup organization and one of the Strengths Finder assessment, one of their books that talks about leadership strengths. These are the 4 needs of followers, and the way that I'm using this today is it's not just about any follower, like this doesn't have to be about your employees or vice versa, but these are the things that all professionals basically need in an organization in order to feel good and be successful in their role. They need to have this sense of trust, which involves the honesty, integrity, and having respect from their coworkers as well as their supervisor. They want to have, and we all want to have, a sense of stability in some way, shape, or form, that we know that our jobs are secure, at least to a certain extent, right? that we are playing to and leveraging our strengths on a regular basis, and others are as well, that we have a sense of compassion in some way, shape, or form in our workplace, okay? And we have at least some sense of enjoyment and happiness from our work that we perform on a regular basis. And finally, we all want to have a sense of hope, that direction, a sense of our leadership knows where they're going and our organization and our team is headed in the right direction. Now, here's the deal with this, everyone. Realizing and understanding that these are the needs that people have in terms of their professional relationship with their organization and their coworkers, this could help you get a sense of what might be missing with your coworker that you're having trouble with. Is one of these pieces one of the pieces that's missing for them and causing part of the problems? This will help you develop greater empathy for what may be going on with them and also what may be going on with you. So in terms of designing the relationship, our last slide here on this one, and then we'll move to skill number 2, this will help you improve your professional relationships because it empowers each person and asks them to take responsibility for their own actions and why the relationship may not be going as well as it could be. It establishes clear boundaries for a safe space for you all to talk about disagreements more effectively. We suggest, by the way, that you periodically update it as needs and situations change, and especially as you move to a new team or working with a new person, talk about how you're going to design your relationship up front. The second skill we want to discuss today is active listening, okay? So active listening, a lot of people feel like they do a good job at active listening, and I totally understand that. And we want you to think about this a little bit more today, though, too, because there's a couple of, there's a checklist that we want you to do for homework and a couple of things we want you to consider here to make sure you truly are engaging in active listening. So here's the deal. Everything in the workplace involves communication. Two-way street with communication obviously is critical because it can enormously impact effectiveness and efficiency. I apologize. I'm having trouble with mixing my words today. And not everyone knows how to naturally listen effectively and truly effectively. So let's pull up what we want to do here on this next slide here. So I want you to think about, everyone, level 2 and level 1 and level 2 listening. So level 1 listening, how we define it as coaches, is internal listening. It's listening to your own inner voice, your opinion, your judgment, your needs. What's going on with you? That sounds really hard. I'm hungry. This meeting is boring. Why are we sitting here for so long? Or even thinking about what you want to say next. That is level 1 listening. You all need to, and we all need to, engage in that just so that we know what's going on with ourselves, but it's not the best place to conduct active listening. Level 2 listening, if we take a look at the next level here, is focus listening. This is focused on the other person, listening to each word that they're saying, but also their nonverbals and what they may not be saying to you or within the group or the meeting. You want to pay attention to, you want to kind of go between level 2 and level 3 listening, everyone, to be more effective in terms of your listening, not just with this difficult coworker, but honestly with everyone in your workplace, okay? Because people may not be saying something to you that is going on underneath the surface that if you kind of feel around for it a little bit and ask them more direct questions, they will share with you, okay? Level 3 listening is one of the ones that we want you all to engage in more proactively because this is the one that people tend to miss. This involves kind of tapping into your intuition like we talked about earlier. Level 3 listening is global listening. It's kind of feeling out and getting a sense of what the energy is between the two of you as you're talking, how it's changing or shifts in attitude, what's the mood, has their mood changed, and can you tell by their nonverbals, okay? So whatever's going on kind of in the room, I don't want to say subliminally, but, energetically, you want to practice listening to that as well and being attuned to it because there are things that people may not be saying to you, and there are things that you may need to call out and say, it seems like you might be uncomfortable with that. Is that the case? Do we need to talk about it? It can help you not step over things that could be critical discussion points that could help you all improve your relationship. So how do we do this? How do we do this level 3 global listening? 2 things, and I'm going to actually start with the bottom of the slide here first because this one's a little bit easier. One of the things you can do is to quiet yourself down, still your body, be calm, and go a little bit slower in your conversation. Step over nothing. Slow yourself down when you're talking. Slow them down if needed. Ask them a question rather than giving them advice, okay? So these are things that you can do for more effective global listening. Just slow things down so that you don't step over things, okay? The second thing we highly recommend you do when you need to discuss something touchy, though, is to set the tone of the conversation before you start, especially if you need to cover something that's going to be touchy or could be difficult for them to hear. Let them know in advance you need to talk about something touchy and ask permission. So, for example, you can say, hey, Joe, I need to chat with you about something, and it's kind of hard for me to say, or it may be difficult for you to hear, but I really need to talk with you about it, so is this a good time? Can we chat about it for a few seconds? Letting them know up front what's coming and asking them for permission to talk about it for a minute makes a huge difference. It will help diffuse and make that difficult conversation go a lot better than it would have otherwise, okay? So this is how you can leverage kind of that level 3 global listening to be more effective, especially in touchy conversations. One of the things we would highly recommend you do for homework to understand how good you are at active listening and what we talked about today is this active empathic listening scale. There's a link to it in the PowerPoint. If for any reason you can't click on it when you get a copy of the PowerPoint and need us to send it to you, just email us. We're happy to send you a copy of the tool. It is free, by the way, and it's just a very quick online quiz. We would recommend you identify your 2 lowest areas and how you can begin to improve those. Happy to do a career strategy session that's complimentary with anyone on the call today to talk more about any of the tools we've discussed, talk more about active listening, and if you have a very specific situation, scenario, or question you need to ask me, feel free to email me after this presentation today. Happy to try to answer for you, and happy to do that quick strategy session if needed as well. So the last thing that we would recommend in terms of your active listening is one additional exercise, is have a close friend or family member tell you about a problem they are struggling with. And practice for you on your end, you are only allowed to reflect what they say, reflect back to them, and paraphrase it as well. Don't ask them any questions and don't give them any advice. It is incredibly difficult to do this. This may sound really easy on the front end, but when we do workshops and we have people perform this exercise, they're always afterwards like, oh my gosh, that was so much harder than I thought it would be. It's a good idea to practice this with friends and family members because it is a muscle, a skill to develop, if you will, a muscle to kind of work out and practice with because it will improve your communication with anyone at your workplace, not just the difficult coworkers. So let's talk about skill number 3. This is our last skill for today, and we're going to talk about being curious. Again, versus blasting in with advice or an opinion. So curiosity is an important critical skill for all coaches, and being curious versus judging someone or going right away to anger can help diffuse a very difficult situation. And here are some examples of how you can do this. And actually, let me pull up one more thing on the slide here. So as we discussed a few minutes ago, before sharing feedback of any kind, honestly, ask someone's permission. Hey, can I chat with you about this right now? Also, we want you to leverage, if you take a look at the slide here too, we want you to start practicing with leveraging powerful questions. Powerful questions are open-ended questions. They are childlike. They don't have judgment in them, and they allow the other person to kind of vent and give their opinion and kind of noodle around with a thought or idea that they might have. It helps them or allows them to explain something or possibly identify a solution. Powerful questions, everyone, are not yes or no. The bottom line with it is that if you notice here, it assumes a positive outcome. How can we improve our work relationship? What's the best way to accomplish this goal without conflict? It assumes a positive outcome, and if you notice with these questions, there is no yes or no answer. It forces a longer-term kind of open-ended conversation, and that's what you want to have to help diffuse whatever is going on. The 2 types of powerful questions are on this slide. They can be information gathering or they can be curious. Information gathering would be how much time do you need to spend on this, or we need to spend on this, who can help us with this project or this issue that we're having together. And they can be just flat out curious. What will finishing this report give you? How will that feel? What would working together effectively look like? Okay? So this is our third critical coaching skill, as we discussed. It's curiosity. It is huge. Let the other person talk first and kind of get things off their chest. It can help enormously. Then obviously you would get to vent and get things off your chest, but it can help enormously kind of set the stage for a more trusting, open relationship. As I mentioned just a few minutes ago, if anyone has any specific questions, because we won't have time for Q&A today, because I want to make sure we get through all of this content, please feel free to email us at admin@halliecrawford.com for any of the tools we've referenced, the free career strategy session, or anything else that you need from us, including just questions at the end. Remember, we talked at the very beginning about a couple of additional critical coaching skills. Intuition, we touched on a little bit ago, helping you with your level 3 global listening a little bit more. We would like our clients to use their intuition and tap into it a little bit more. In the hurriedness of our day, paying attention to our phone, email, everything else, we tend to forget to kind of take a moment to get grounded in our gut instincts and what we feel might be right in terms of handling this kind of situation. Use your intuition to identify solutions to the conflict or issues or what may be going on with the difficult employee or coworker. Instead of overanalyzing something, let it simmer overnight before you address what's going on. Sit quietly with the issue. Maybe you need to journal a little bit. Talk to a mentor or a coach like me, but be sure to approach the situation calmly. So leveraging intuition is another critical coaching skill we kind of want to put in your hat there, so to speak. And then finally, we want you to think about improved self-management as well, trying not to judge the other person, but trying to empathize with what may be going on with them. There may be things going on with this coworker that you don't even know that's going on in their personal life or something else. So try not to make assumptions about what's happening and invite them to share instead. And then finally, if you take a look at the last piece here at the bottom of this slide, the effective communication formula is very basic and straightforward. In order for you to be assertive and understanding at the same time and leverage effective communication, the first thing you want to do, take a look here on the slide, is show understanding. The second thing you want to do is state the facts. Don't get into too much emotional kind of back and forth about it. State the facts. And then finally, offer a resolution. And there's plenty more that you could probably add to this list as well, asking those powerful questions like we said. But the basic 3-step formula to effective, assertive communication is showing understanding, stating the facts, and offering a resolution. So you do want to go into the meeting with them with a possible solution, not just going in to chit-chat and, vent and start screaming at each other. Obviously, that would not be ideal at all. So finally, before we go here, I want you all to write down, please, one action step that you will take in the next week. It could be to take advantage of the coaching session. It could be to set up a meeting to address the agreements that you want to have to improve your working relationship and design the alliance, or it could be to complete the empathic listening scale. One of the things I want to leave you with before we go is the quote that always helps me push past discomfort when I don't feel like doing something that's going to be uncomfortable or unsettling or it's pushing me out of my comfort zone. I want you to think about this quote: the greatest risk in life is not taking one. This is the quote that always enables me or kind of pushes me or inspires me to take the risk that I just don't feel like taking right now, knowing that it's needed. And at the end of the day, I want to say I tried, even if I said, even if I failed, then I didn't try at all. Thank you, everyone, for your time today. We greatly appreciate it. Please feel free to reach out to us if you'd like more information about our coaching services. I would be happy to chat with you about anything that you need career-wise. Have a great day. As a reminder, you will get the recording. It will either be later today or first thing tomorrow morning. Have a great day. Thanks, everyone.